There was a time, long before the Imperium, before the Great Crusade, before even the Emperor walked openly amongst mankind, when humanity stood at a technological zenith. Incredible pieces of almost magical technology were at our very fingertips, and mankind, alongside that of the Eldari Empire, ruled the stars utterly. But what about the road up to this zenith? Mankind has spread amongst the stars, terraforming and creating planet after planet to our liking, but the universe have and never will be a gentle place. Quite a few colonists would land upon planets with hopes and dreams, and then immediately be eaten or enslaved by apex predators or species that had laid claim to the planet already. And while I imagine that the colonists and the men of gold that would travel here would try out the diplomatic options, it is clear to all when we shift through data tombs and the dunes of terror that these enlightened men and women needed some absolutely fantastical weapons and defenses to secure their golden way of life. Some of these weapons are glorious toys that has been lost forever, and others survived the collapse of human civilization, now buried beneath worlds, locked away in forgotten vaults, or carried into the modern age by those who barely understand what it is that they truly possess. Some of these are even the basis for some of the rumors of these men and women that they might outright possess magical abilities, but in truth we all know that it comes down to technology. These men and women rely not on the darkness of the Imperium, but on the glories of the golden age of technology. One exemplar of this is the Captain General of the Custodies, Mr. Trajan Valoris, and while his gear is impressive, none of it is as impressive as the moment shackle. This is a rare and highly unusual relic of the dark age of technology, in that so far we have never encountered another one of its kin, or even other technology that can mimic its functions, unless you look towards the technology available to the Necron Lords, and even here they are hesitant to do anything like this. It is described as a strange brass and golden device, partially made up of half-understood mechanisms and moving parts. The hidden remnants of the Terrawat clan, currently in service to the Custodies, have verified that it is of ancient human origin, and that should it ever stop working, nobody in the Imperium will have the knowledge to repair it. Recovered from the armory vaults beneath the Imperial Palace on Terra, Valoris wears it on his belt at all times and takes great care in whatever maintenance that can be done to the device. The Moment Shackle is a chrono-manipulative device that grants Valoris access to powerful ways of bending local space-time around himself. On the field of battle, he's been seen able to trap events in additional seconds, and personal account from Valoris himself verifies that he has used this device to alter an event that has already happened within a few seconds. There are even other accounts of witnesses seeing him slowing down attacks around him as he fights several opponents at the same time. Trajan Valoris is easily regarded as being the very top of fighters within the entire galaxy of 40k, if not the singular best amongst non-Primarchs. And one might wonder how a device such as this would either be a huge part of this or simply boost his already legendary prowess. Just imagine fighting a man who is already superhuman, incredibly talented, and now he's able to stretch out a moment to react or even redo actions in a critical moment. There is, however, another interesting facet to the Moment Shackle, and that is that through meditation and the absolute perfect focus of a custodian, Trajan might be able to get an understanding of the future. No custodian has ever awakened psychic abilities, and I don't think that anyone ever will, and as such he does not see the future and visions or anything like that, but he seemed to be able to get a feeling through his finely honed predator instincts. Kinda like when animals can see earthquakes before they happen, or get a feeling when something terrible is about to occur. This is kind of backed up by the fact that around the resurrection of rebooted Guilliman and the shattering of the galaxy, Trajan had escalated on the Custodies' training and stockpiling of resources, and had even reinforced all of Saul's defenses in anticipation of something terrible on the horizon. Within the Armoury vaults, there is another type of technology here, and that is called the Adraic weaponries. It is a class of technology that includes all manner of versions, ranging from handheld devices to versions so powerful and heavy that they are mounted on anti-gravity platforms and tanks. They are among the most feared and tightly controlled pieces of technology in the Imperium of Man, almost exclusively associated with the Emperor's personal forces, as these are much more than a simple disintegration weapon. Adraic weapons, when viewed from the outside, seem to direct a potent beam of energy that, when it connects, severs the internal atomic bonds of any and all matter, and targets caught in the beam unravel in a spectacular destructive manner that leaves behind only a flaring after image and a nuke shadow of what once existed. What is incredibly interesting about this is the fact that psychically attuned witnesses have testified that a thing destroyed by such a device also ceased to exist in the warp, meaning that anything caught in the way of an Adraic weapon truly stops existing. This is essentially a true death ray for everything in the universe. During the Age of Strife, entire wars were fought solely over the possession of a singular unearthed cache of these guns because of the power that they promised, and when Big E rose to power, he put a stop to all of that immediately. He demanded that all Adraic weapons were to surrender to him on the pain of death, no exceptions and ifs or buts. The penalty applied not to the individual who retained them, but to their entire tribe, area, or even nation. Such were the importance placed on monopolizing this technology, and he had a very good reason for it. Within these devices, through truly esoteric and unique ways that I can only guess at, are inscribed something called Enochian words, specifically Enochian words of destruction. I have mentioned this language before, and I will repeat myself. It is essentially the base code of the universe, altering reality in accordance with its utterances, affecting anything and everything in its vicinity. And Big E refused to deal with techno-barbarian savages running around and firing true death loudspeakers at each other, deleting existence around them while doing so. I mean, sometimes Big E can be unreasonable, but this time I kinda get where he's coming from. Speaking of war crimes, it's time to talk about war crimes. And we are here now to talk about Phosphex weapons. These things view the Geneva Convention as more of a suggestion list. Phosphex weapons are referred to exactly that, or sometimes as living fire, and they are among the most horrific and restricted weapons in Imperial history. And you know it's bad when the Imperium of Man looks at the result of a weapon and goes, well, not doing that again, and actually stick to it. The weapon itself is a flame that is virtually antithetical to life. It burns in such a way that there are virtually no ways to put it out, whether chemically or the cold vacuum of space. Onlookers describe how this terrible balefire seemed to seek out anything living in order to consume it. And when deployed, Phosphex expands on contact with the air into a seething mist that burns with an eerie white-green light. The mist is corrosive and toxic, allowing it to eat its way through almost any matter. It especially is renowned for eating its way through soft parts of power armor and even dreadnoughts, where it, upon contact with any living matter, will burst into this terrible green flame. It has been given many terrible names. Amongst them are the Crawling Death, Ice Fire, or Worm Fire, and it burns with an intensity that warlocks recount as being able to burn through solid rock and adamantium. When the flames finally resides, the remaining residue taints the environment far more than any nuclear fallout or any firing of rad weapons, rendering affected areas uninhabitable for centuries or even longer. While the Imperium treats this weapon as the true weapon of mass destruction that it absolutely is, and only considered it as a true absolute last resort, this has not kept the legions and chapters of the Emperor's Angels of Death from using it, often against traitors. However, any traitor that gets a hold of these weapons will find any excuse to actually use them in any and all circumstances. Phosphex weapons comes in all manner of sizes, being bombs, shells, grenades, cannon shells, flamethrowers, and even exterminatus grade weaponry, you name it. Luckily for the galaxy, the knowledge and materials for making more of this stuff is so limited that it might as well be classified as having been lost. The materials for producing Phosphex are based on formulas from the Dark Age of technology, and the STC fragment capable of producing these chemicals were destroyed by a tech priest after they witnessed the horror that it was used to create. This means that whatever remains of Phosphex in the universe, that is all that is left, and this is a good thing. Kinda like the next thing that we are going to talk about. The Kinetic Destroyer. The known examples of these pistols and rifles were unearthed from a stasis vault within the skeletal remains of a crashed void ship buried deep beneath the layered sediment of what was once Terra's Pacific Ocean. This dates the weapons back to either the very beginning of the Dark Age of technology or even the time leading up to it, which is staggering to think about. What was recovered were tens of thousands of specialized energy emitter pistols and rifles, alongside with corresponding shells and munitions. When fired and expending one of these shells, a kinetic destroyer releases an absolute vast amount of directed kinetic force, blasting apart cover, the target behind the cover, and even maybe a couple of people behind that target. The artificers of the Emperor's Custodies have worked for centuries on these devices, even finding a way to replicate the pistol variant of the Kinetic Destroyer. But what is the real challenge to this weapon is its ammunition. Each shell is so complex and requires machinery that simply cannot be created within the Imperium, and so far, no STC archives seem to hold anything related to these weapons. Even the Mechanicum was approached for help on the issue, and even their vast stores of knowledge could not provide any help into the development of these munitions. I imagine that several tech priests would scream out in tech heresy at this revelation, but the Emperor's chosen guard are really good at silencing witnesses. In short order, each shell is irreplaceable, and a servant of the Emperor granted the honor of wielding such a weapon are expected not to fire it, as each ring of a kinetic discharge parrots the decline of the Imperium. The next device I've talked about before, and that's called the Adraic Shackles. These are devices that are exclusively used by the Shadow Keepers of the Emperor's Custodies, and these restraints were all forged during the Dark Age of technology as an adaptive system that alters itself to restrain its targets, but even more so works on shutting down the neural paths of its victims. These have returned many a horror to the prison within the Black Cells, and speaking of the Black Cells, the Custodians have stolen a personal relic from the Eater of Gods. This is called the anathematic diadem. It is a black circlet described as being able to envelop the wearer in a circlet of blackness that darkens the soul. This renders the wielder almost impossible to be affected by the powers of the warp, and demons falter and run screaming from this terrible relic. The official historical records place its creation to hail from the earliest eras of the Dark Age of technology, yet it does not have a hint of technology within it. It was placed in the artifact vaults amongst trophies, and has since the opening of the Great Rift been moved to the armory halls of the Emperor's Custodies. I personally believe that this is the diadem that was a personal belonging to the Eater of Gods, and that her null powers have soaked into this beautiful piece of jewelry throughout the centuries or even millennia that it has been worn by her. With the Custodies working in concert with the Sisters of Silence, this diadem specifically reinforces the idea of them as defenders against warp-based and psychic threats. And also I love the idea of a helmetless, ultra-chad custodian beating a psyker to death with his bare hands while wearing a truly beautiful princess diadem. then we have something quite special. And it is the gilded vessel of the, and let's see if I can say this word, Amalofrian phial. This contains a mysterious life-giving liquid of rejuvenation and healing. Ingestion, even a singular drop of this liquid, fully restores the body to its peak condition, no matter if it is human, transhuman, or anything else. While no official records exist in regard to its history, we can infer with the knowledge that we have to the level of genecraft that the men of gold possessed during the age of technology. And when we look at this, something like this phial would be considered medicine for this time. The very fact that this is a true omnicure for anything that it has ever been used on speaks to how advanced humanity were at its zenith, as not only does the phial cure what currently threatens the body, but it rejuvenates youth, regenerates DNA sequences, and meaning that anything wrong with the body will be fixed forever, or until another bolt round finds your torso. It is carried in an ornate reliquary where it is kept in stasis between having to be deployed, and only a few handful of these remain within the Imperium, with nothing left once that it has been spent. A secret about this relic, however, is that amongst a very small circle of the Emperor's Hereditary Guard, a singular vial of this elixir is engraved with the Emperor's personal seal and reserved for a day in the future. Jumping from healing back onto destruction, we have the syntaxic charger. According to the ravings of Magus Revka from the Adeptus Mechanicus, this terrifying weapon originates from the dark age of technology and is a gift that manifests the presence of the Omnissiah. It takes the form of an incredibly large sonic projector that has to be integrated into the body of its wielder, drawing directly from both external energy sources but also the very life of the one that fires it. When activated, it projects what the Adeptus Mechanicus refers to as a true echo of the machine god's own voice. This utterance creates a sonic blast wave that destroys soldiers, tanks, and mines alike, and it is said that the sheer logical power tears the bond that links the spirit to the warp, leaving survivors as servants of logic. My personal take here, if we were to commit the sin of tech heresy, is that if you were to take this device apart, you would find within the chassis basically an Eldritch disintegrator, except that instead of words of destruction, it is words of reason and logic. Speaking of logic, we have the Area Strike. This is a piece of tech that was found within an STC fragment by the Adraic exploratory fleets, and a great number of them has been produced before the Alpha Legion warband
Redacted
would infiltrate, steal, and sabotage any further production. This means that those pieces of technology that the Imperium has are basically all that they got, but they truly get something out of it whenever it's used. This is an ancient piece of technology that is used in electronic warfare and counterintelligence. These devices twist and distort electromagnetic signals from other pieces of technology that are attempting to interface with them or trying to target the wearer, meaning that they project a cloak of trash data that makes machine spirits recoil in anger. Weaponry dependent on targeting data have their machine spirits only get corrupted data, and optical cybernetics goes haywire when they look upon a person that has been shrouded in such a way, making combat against them nearly impossible. The Area Strike can even be projected in such a way that it's using something called blight code that perverts data readouts and telemetry plotters from nearby unshielded cogitators, essentially making them useless against any wearer that has this piece of technology. These devices were frequently used during the Unification War, the Great Crusade, and the Horus Heresy era, as many had been excavated, but in the modern 40k it is mainly used by the Assassinorum Mechanicus and in a special type of ship that is referred to as the Corvus Blackstar gunship. At the very last, we have to talk about one of the few types of weapons technology from the Golden Age that the Imperium and Adeptus Mechanicus actually remain fully capable of still producing: the Vulkite weapons. This classification of weaponry come in a long range of sizes, from Vulkite Serpenta pistols, chargers for assault weapons, and calibers for precision fire, to actual Titan-sized Vulkite cannonades for when you're really tired of seeing that mountain over there. These weapons are an ancient class of powerful thermal ray energy weapons that are viewed as much as a symbol of status as much for their lethality. They are reminders and a representation of the lost golden age, where weapons of this powers were deployed as regularly as the Imperium deploys las rifles. Their designs are often ornate, beautiful, and are seen as relics of status among those who are chosen to wield them. When fired against an unarmored target, they create a process known as deflagration. This is where flesh explosively burns into ash in sprouts of flame, making them especially feared by organic or mass targets. Against an armored target, they retain incredibly high penetrative power for their relative size, and Vulkite pistol easily shoots through iron, steel, and with a few blasts, even ceramite, violently performing deflagration on the target within. These weapons entered true production during the middle of the Great Crusade, with several forge worlds being dedicated to their creation. The idea being that Vulkite weapons would come to be the mainstay weapon of the Imperial army rather than last in stock weaponry. This could have proven a real problem for Horus during his rebellion, as it would allow regular humans to fight on the level of space marines, or, at least when it comes to firepower. And significant forces were sent out by Horus to destroy these forge worlds in order to stop widespread production. The Leagues of Votann field a variant of Vulcanite weapon that the Adeptus Mechanicus believe to originate from old Martian designs, but kin Vulkite technology is far older and has remained essentially unchanged for millennia. Then you can kind of discuss whether something becomes better because it hasn't changed, or the very idea that you're not really innovating makes anything better. And then you look at the Adeptus Mechanicus who don't want to innovate, and then you look at the Leagues of Votann who are it's a whole thing. There are much more spicy tech and weapons in use from the Golden Age all across the galaxy. And even with all of this, the Necrons are still sitting there viewing us as monkeys that has recently discovered fire. Anyways, thank you so much for listening. Tell me about your favorite thing from this list in the comments, and consider subscribing for more. And I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.